Good evening, dear friend. Welcome back to Moonlit Wisdom. Find your place tonight. Let the pillow cradle the weight of your head. Let the blanket settle over you like a soft hand on your shoulder. And for a moment, just notice the room around you, the quiet spaces between things, the stillness that holds everything in place. Tonight, we explore something most people overlook. Not a thing you can hold, not a word you can speak, not a place you can travel to. We explore emptiness, the space inside the cup, the silence between notes, the pause between your breaths. Because it is in what is missing that we so often find what matters most. Take a slow breath in through your nose, hold it gently for a moment, and let it go soft and long through your mouth. Again, breathe in, feeling your chest rise, your ribs expand, creating space inside your body, and breathe out, letting that space soften, settle, and become still. One more time, a slow breath in and a long, easy breath out. Let your shoulders drop, let your jaw unclench, let your eyes grow heavy. Now, let us gently visit each part of your body and create a little more space within it. Start at the top of your head. Imagine a warm light resting there, soft and golden. It is not pressing down. It is lifting, opening, making room. Feel the muscles of your forehead smooth out. Feel your temples soften. Feel the tiny muscles around your eyes release their grip, as if they have been holding on all day, and finally, they can let go. Let that warmth drift down to your jaw. Your jaw holds so much tension. All the words you said today, all the words you held back. Let it loosen. Let your lips part slightly. Let your tongue rest heavy and still against the floor of your mouth. The warmth moves to your throat now, the narrow passage where breath and voice live together. Let it open. Let it widen. Imagine a gentle space opening there, like a window in a quiet room. Down to your shoulders. They have carried so much today. Bags, responsibilities, worry. Let them drop. Not suddenly, but slowly, like snow sliding off a warm roof. Feel the space that opens between your shoulders and your ears. That space was not there a moment ago. You created it simply by letting go. Now your chest. Feel your ribs expand slightly with each breath. Feel the space between them widen. Your heart is beating in the center of that space. Steady, unhurried, faithful. It has been beating all day without you asking it to. It will keep beating all night while you sleep. You do not need to watch it. You do not need to help it. Just notice it and let the space around it grow softer. Your arms are resting at your sides or on your chest. Feel the weight of them, the gentle pull of gravity. Let your hands uncurl. Let your fingers soften. Imagine each finger growing slightly longer, slightly heavier, as if they are slowly melting into the bed beneath you. Your belly now. Let it be soft. Let it rise and fall without any effort. So many of us hold our stomachs tight all day, pulling in, holding up. Tonight, there is no one watching. There is nothing to hold in. Just let it be soft and round and easy, like a sleeping cat curled on a warm stone. Down to your hips, your thighs. Feel them pressing into the mattress, heavy and warm. Let the muscles along the tops of your thighs release. Let your knees fall slightly apart if that feels comfortable. Feel the weight of your legs, solid, grounded, still. Your calves, your ankles, your feet, each toe softening, uncurling, letting go of the day. The soles of your feet, which have carried you through every step of this day, can finally rest. They do not need to take you anywhere else tonight. You have arrived. Your whole body is softer now, heavier, more spacious. There is room inside you, room between your thoughts, room between your breaths, room between your heartbeats. And into that room, 7 ancient stories will now pour themselves gently, one by one. Tonight, 7 stories will unfold around this single truth: that emptiness is not nothing. It is the beginning of everything. Let the first story come to you now, like moonlight finding an open window. There's a passage in the Tao Te Ching, written over 2,000 years ago, where Lao Tzu speaks of the most ordinary things: a wheel, a pot, a room, and reveals something extraordinary hiding inside each one. 30 spokes, he says, share a single hub. You can see them radiating outward, each one carved and polished, each one essential. But Lao Tzu does not praise the spokes. He points instead to the hole at the center of the hub, that small, round emptiness where the axle sits. Without that hole, the wheel cannot turn. Without that emptiness, no cart can move, no journey can begin. Picture a village road in ancient China, dust rising in the summer heat. A wooden cart creaking along, pulled by an old ox. The wheels turn slowly, their wooden rims worn smooth by years of travel. The farmer sitting on the cart does not think about the spokes. He does not think about the wood or the iron. He thinks about the road ahead, the market where he will sell his grain, the family waiting for him at home. The wheel turns, and his life moves forward. And at the heart of that turning, at the very center of every rotation, is a small, round nothing, an emptiness, the hole that makes everything possible. Then Lao Tzu speaks of a potter. Picture her at her wheel, hands slick with water, fingers pressing and shaping wet clay. She works for hours, smoothing the walls, rounding the rim, firing it in the kiln until it glows. A beautiful pot emerges, strong, glazed, perfectly formed. But Lao Tzu asks, what makes the pot useful? Not the clay, the emptiness inside. Without that hollow center, the pot cannot hold water. It cannot hold rice. It cannot hold flowers. The beauty of the pot is in its walls, but the purpose of the pot is in the space they surround. Imagine that pot sitting on a kitchen shelf. Morning light catches its surface. A woman fills it with water from the well, and the water settles inside. Cool, clear, still. The pot does nothing but hold that water. That is its entire purpose. And it fulfills that purpose not because of what it is made of, but because of what is missing from its center. And then a room, for walls, a floor, a ceiling, bricks and mortar, beams and plaster. Workers labor for weeks to raise the structure. But Lao Tzu says, cut a window in the wall and hang a door in the frame, and it is the empty spaces, the opening where the door swings, the gap where light pours in, that make the room a place where someone can live. Think of the room you're lying in right now. The walls surround you. The ceiling shelters you. But it is the space between those walls, the open air where you breathe, where you move, where you dream, that makes this room a place of rest. Without the emptiness inside it, this room would be solid stone. Beautiful perhaps, but useless, unlivable, a tomb instead of a home. We spend our lives filling things up, filling our schedules, our homes, our minds. We pile possession upon possession, thought upon thought, task upon task, believing that more is better, that full is complete. But Lao Tzu, standing quietly at the edge of all that noise, simply points to the hole in the hub, the hollow in the pot, the doorway in the wall, and whispers, usefulness comes from what is not there. Perhaps tonight, as you lie here, you can feel this truth in your own body. Your lungs are useful because they are hollow. They can fill with air. Your heart is useful because it is a chamber. It can fill with blood and then release it. Even your ears are useful because of the small, empty canal that lets sound travel inward to meet you. You are not meant to be solid all the way through. You are meant to have space inside you. Room for breath, room for feeling, room for rest. Let yourself be the empty pot tonight. You do not need to hold anything. You do not need to contain anything. Just be hollow and let the stillness pour in. Breathe in slowly and breathe out. Feel the hollow space inside your chest, warm and still. Let the next story arrive gently, like water filling a quiet vessel. In a monastery high in the mountains of Japan, there lived a calligrapher named Sengai. He was old, well past 70, and had spent his entire life with ink and brush. His characters were famous across the country. Collectors traveled for days just to watch him work. They said his brushstrokes carried the weight of mountains and the lightness of clouds, all in the same line. Sengai's studio was a small room at the back of the monastery, overlooking a garden of moss and stone. Each morning, he would grind his ink slowly on the stone, black ink made from pine soot and animal glue, mixed with a few drops of water until it reached the perfect consistency. This grinding took nearly an hour. Most of his students thought it was preparation. Sengai knew it was the work itself. In the slow, circular motion of the ink stick against the stone, his mind emptied. His thoughts settled. By the time the ink was ready, so was he. One autumn afternoon, a wealthy merchant arrived at the monastery. He had come a long way, bringing gifts of silk and silver. He knelt before Sengai and made his request. "Master, I have admired your work all my life. I have purchased scrolls. I have studied your characters. I have hung your words in my finest room. But I have never owned your greatest work. I am here today to ask, will you create your masterpiece for me? I will pay any price." Sengai looked at the merchant for a long time. The afternoon light fell through the window in long, golden bars. Outside, a single maple leaf detached from its branch and spiraled slowly to the ground. Then the old calligrapher nodded slowly. "Come back tomorrow morning," he said. The merchant could barely sleep that night. He lay in the monastery guest house, imagining what the great master would create. Perhaps a sweeping landscape of characters, telling the story of the universe in a single breath. Perhaps a poem so beautiful it would make emperors weep. Perhaps a single, perfect circle, the Enso, drawn with such mastery that it would capture the whole of existence in one brushstroke. At dawn, the merchant rushed to Sengai's studio. The old man was sitting calmly, a cup of tea in his hand. Before him, on the low table, lay a scroll, rolled and tied with a simple cord. "Is that it?" the merchant asked, his voice trembling with anticipation. "That is it," Sengai said. The merchant reached for the scroll with both hands. Carefully, reverently, he untied the cord. He unrolled the paper slowly, savoring the moment. The scroll was blank. Not a single stroke. Not a dot. Not a mark of any kind. Just smooth, empty, cream-colored paper stretching from one end to the other. The merchant stared at it for a long time. His face reddened. His hands trembled slightly. "Master," he said carefully, trying to hide his confusion, "I asked for your masterpiece. This scroll is empty." Sengai took a sip of tea. The steam rose from the cup in a thin, curling line that disappeared into the air. "I've spent 60 years learning to paint," the old man said quietly. 60 years learning which strokes to make. But the greatest lesson, the one that took me the longest, was learning which strokes not to make. Every character I have ever painted emerged from silence. Every line began in empty space. What you're holding is not nothing. It is the source of everything I have ever created. It is the paper before the poem, the silence before the song, the stillness before the dance. The merchant looked at the scroll again, and this time, slowly, something shifted behind his eyes. He did not see blankness anymore. He saw possibility. He saw the space before the first word of every poem. the silence before the first note of every song, the stillness before the first breath of every life. He saw a page that was not empty but full of every character that had ever been written and every character that had yet to be imagined. He bowed deeply. "Thank you, Master," he said, and he meant it. Sometimes the most profound gift someone can give you is space. Not answers, space. Not instructions, openness. Not more information, more advice, more words, but a clearing in the forest where you can finally sit down and hear yourself think. Tonight, you have received that gift. This quiet, this darkness, this bed. It is your blank scroll. Nothing needs to be written on it. Nothing needs to happen. The emptiness itself is the masterpiece. Rest your hands on your chest if it feels comfortable. Feel them rise and fall with each breath. Rise and fall, rise and fall. Each breath writes nothing on the scroll of this night, and that is exactly enough. Let your breathing settle even deeper now, slow and quiet. Like ink dissolving in water, your thoughts are spreading thin, growing faint, fading into the warm dark. Let the next tale come softly. A young monk once traveled to study with an old Zen master named Hakuin. The young monk had read every sutra. He could recite the Diamond Sutra from memory. He had debated with scholars and impressed abbots across 3 provinces. He arrived at Hakuin's temple full of knowledge, full of certainty, full of answers. Hakuin's temple was modest, a few low buildings around a courtyard of packed earth. An old pine tree grew in the corner, its branches draped over the meditation hall like a protective arm. The young monk noticed that the temple was unusually quiet. No chanting, no lectures, no sound of pages turning. Just the wind in the pine tree and the occasional creak of wood settling in the cold. Hakuin received him with a cup of tea and a simple question. "Tell me," said Hakuin, leaning forward slightly, his eyes bright and sharp despite his age. "What is the sound of one hand?" The young monk blinked. "One hand," he repeated. "Yes," Hakuin said. "You know the sound of 2 hands clapping." He brought his palms together with a sharp crack that echoed off the temple walls. "Now, tell me the sound of one hand." The monk thought about this. He thought about it through dinner, a simple meal of rice and pickled vegetables eaten in silence. He thought about it through evening meditation, sitting on the cold wooden floor of the zendo as the last light faded from the sky. He thought about it as he lay on his thin mat that night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind. The next morning, he came to Hakuin with his answer. The sound of one hand, the monk declared confidently, is the sound of wind through the pines. Hakuin shook his head slowly. "No, that is the sound of wind through the pines." The monk returned to his room, troubled. He thought harder. He came back the next day. "The sound of one hand is the dripping of water from the temple eaves." "No, that is the sound of dripping water." Again the monk went away. Again he returned. "Is the cry of a night owl." "No, the creak of the temple gate." "No, the silence after a bell stops ringing." "No." Week after week, the monk brought answers. Dozens of answers. Clever answers, poetic answers, philosophical answers that quoted ancient masters and referenced obscure texts. And week after week, Hakuin simply said no. Sometimes he said it gently. Sometimes he said it firmly. Once or twice, he said it without even looking up from his tea. Months passed. The seasons changed. Snow covered the temple courtyard. The pine tree's branches sagged under the weight of white. The monk grew frustrated. He grew exhausted. He stopped reading sutras. He stopped debating with the other monks. He stopped trying to be clever. One by one, all his answers drained away, like water draining from a cracked jar, until he was left sitting in his room with nothing. No knowledge, no cities, no answers at all. Just an empty room, a thin mat, and the sound of his own breathing. And in that emptiness, something shifted. It did not happen dramatically. There was no flash of light, no thunder, no angelic voice from the heavens. It was quieter than that, much quieter. He was not thinking. He was not trying. He was simply sitting, breathing, present in the room. And he heard it. Not a sound exactly, more like the awareness that comes before sound. The openness that makes hearing possible. The space in which all sounds arise and into which all sounds disappear. It was not a thing to be found. It was the finding itself. The awareness before awareness becomes aware of something. The silence that is not the absence of noise, but the presence of everything held in stillness. He walked slowly to Haquin's room. The snow was falling outside, thick and soft. His footsteps left dark prints in the white courtyard. He did not speak when he entered. He simply sat down and looked at the old master. Haquin smiled, a slow, warm smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "You have heard it," Haquin said quietly. The monk nodded. He had heard it, and now he could never unhear it. What he had heard was not a thing. It was the absence of things. The emptiness that allows everything to exist. You cannot find it by searching. You can only find it by stopping, by letting go of every answer until the question itself dissolves. And what remains is not an answer, but a vast, quiet openness. And perhaps that is what tonight is for. You have searched enough today. You have answered enough questions, solved enough problems, carried enough weight. Now it is time to stop. To sit in the quiet, to let the answers drain away and discover what remains when you are not trying to be anything at all. Let your mind go quiet, like a room after everyone has left. The chairs are empty. The lights are dim. The conversations have ended. And in that empty room, there's a kind of peace that is deeper than any word anyone ever spoke in it. Breathe in through your nose, slowly, and out through your mouth like a whisper, like snow falling on snow. Let the next story find its way to you through the quiet. In the ancient city of Kyoto, there is a garden made of nothing but rocks and raked gravel. 15 stones sit on a bed of white sand, arranged in 5 groups, surrounded by an old clay wall stained with age and weather. The wall's plaster has darkened over centuries, giving it a mottled, painterly quality, as if time itself had been slowly applying brushstrokes. No flowers grow in the garden. No water flows. No trees cast shade. Just stone, sand, and silence. It is the garden of Ryoanji Temple, and it has puzzled visitors for over 500 years. Each morning, before dawn, a monk descends into the garden with a wide wooden rake. He begins at one corner and works his way slowly across the entire space, drawing the rake through the white gravel in long, parallel lines. Around each group of stones, the lines curve and flow, following the shape of the rock the way water follows the shape of a riverbed. It takes nearly an hour to rake the entire garden. When he finishes, the surface is perfect, a sea of precise, undulating lines stretching from wall to wall. By afternoon, the wind and the birds have already begun to disturb the pattern. A leaf falls from a tree beyond the wall. A sparrow hops across the sand, leaving tiny footprints. The lines blur and shift. And the next morning, the monk returns and rakes it all again. Every day, the same work. Every day, a new beginning on a surface that will never stay perfect. But here is the mystery that draws people from around the world. No matter where you sit on the wooden viewing platform, no matter how you shift your position, leaning left, leaning right, standing on your toes, crouching down low, you can only ever see 14 of the 15 stones. One stone is always hidden behind another. Always. Some visitors spend hours trying to find the perfect angle. They're certain that if they just move a little more, a little further, they will finally see all 15 stones at once. But they never do. The garden was designed this way on purpose. Some scholars say the garden represents islands in a vast sea. Others say the stones are a mother tiger leading her cubs across a river. Others say the arrangement follows mathematical principles that mirror the branching patterns of trees. But the monks of Ryoanji have never confirmed any interpretation. The garden simply is what it is: stones, sand, and the space between them. The monks who created this garden understood something about completeness that most of us resist. True wholeness includes what you cannot see. The 15th stone is not a flaw in the design. It is the lesson. It reminds you that there will always be something beyond your view, something you cannot grasp, something that remains hidden no matter how hard you look. And that hidden stone, that invisible piece, is not a failure of your vision. It is an invitation to trust, to accept that the world is larger than you're seeing, that understanding is deeper than your knowing, that life holds more than you can hold, and that this is not a deficiency, but a grace. Most of us exhaust ourselves trying to see all 15 stones. We want to understand everything, control everything, know everything. We stay up late reading one more article, checking one more message, solving one more problem, as if peace were hiding behind the very next piece of information. But the Garden of Ryoanji whispers something different. Peace comes from accepting that the picture is never complete, and that this incompleteness is not a problem to solve, but a beauty to appreciate. Tonight, let the 15th stone remain hidden. You do not need to find it. You do not need to see everything or understand everything. 14 stones are enough. What you know is enough. What you have done today is enough. Close your eyes and imagine that garden. White sand stretching before you, raked into gentle curves. Dark stones rising like small mountains. And somewhere, just out of sight, a 15 stone, patient, present, unhurried. It does not need you to see it. It is content to simply be. And you can be content too. Let your breath become like the raked lines in the sand. Steady, parallel, flowing softly around whatever thoughts remain. Never fighting them. Simply moving around them with patience and grace. Breathe in slowly and breathe out. Slowly, letting the garden grow still inside your mind. Let the next story arrive in its own time, unhurried, like a monk walking through a quiet corridor. There was once a musician, a young woman named Lin, who played the guqin, the ancient Chinese 7-stringed instrument. The guqin is not like a piano or a violin. It is older than both, over 3,000 years old. Its body is a long, narrow plank of paulownia wood, its strings made of twisted silk. The sound it produces is quiet, intimate, meant to be heard in a small room by a few listeners or by no one at all. In ancient China, it was said that the guqin was not played for others. It was played for oneself and for the mountains and rivers. Lin had studied since childhood. Her fingers moved across the silk strings with precision and speed. She could play the most complex classical pieces without a single mistake. High mountains and flowing water, autumn moon over the Han Palace, wild geese descending on a sandy shore. Her teachers praised her technique. Audiences applauded her performances. Competition judges gave her the highest marks. But something was missing, and she knew it. Her music was correct. Every note was in its proper place. Every rhythm precise, every melody faithful to the original composition. And yet, when she finished playing, the room felt no different than before she had begun. The music passed through the air and disappeared, leaving nothing behind. No echo in the heart, no shift in the breath. No silence that felt fuller than before. It was like reading a poem in a language you understand perfectly but feel nothing about. One day, Lynn heard of an old master who lived alone in a bamboo grove near Westlake. He was said to be the greatest guqin player alive, though he never performed in public and never accepted students. Travelers who had heard him play by accident, walking past his house at dusk, or resting near the grove on a moonlit night, spoke of his music the way monks speak of enlightenment. They could not describe it, only that it had changed something inside them. Lynn traveled for 3 days to find him. When she arrived at the small house among the bamboo, the old master was sitting on his porch, his instrument resting across his knees. He was not playing. He was simply sitting, listening to the wind move through the bamboo. The leaves rustled and clicked against each other, creating a gentle, ceaseless music of their own. Lynn bowed and introduced herself. She told him about her training, her technique, her awards. She played a piece for him, her most difficult, most impressive composition. Her fingers danced across the strings. The notes poured out, rapid and flawless, filling the small clearing with sound. When she finished, the old master was quiet for a long time. A full minute passed, then another. Lynn began to feel uncomfortable in the silence. "Your notes are perfect," he said at last, "but your silences are empty." Lynn frowned. "Silences, the space between the notes," the master said. "That is where the music lives. You are so busy playing the next note that you never let the previous one finish dying. You rush past the silence because you are afraid of it. You are afraid that if you pause, the listener will lose interest, or you will lose your place, or the music will collapse. But the silence is not nothing. It is where the listener feels. It is where the note turns into meaning. It is the empty room that gives the music a place to live." He placed his own fingers on the strings and played a single note. Just one, a deep, resonant tone that vibrated through the wood of the porch and into the ground beneath it. Then he lifted his hands and sat perfectly still. The note faded slowly. It softened and thinned and stretched like a thread of smoke rising from a candle. And as it faded, something remarkable happened. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of the memory of the note, full of the space the note had opened, full of feeling that had no name but settled into the chest like warm water. Lynn felt tears on her cheeks, though she could not explain why. One note and a silence. And it had moved her more than the entire concerto she had played moments before. One note, the master said quietly, and the rest is silence. If you can learn to love the silence as much as the sound, your music will change lives. Lynn stayed in the bamboo grove for 3 years. The master gave her very few lessons, perhaps a dozen in all that time. Mostly, he taught her to sit, to listen to rain without naming it rain, to watch bamboo sway without counting the stalks, to hear the spaces between the sounds of the world, and to recognize that those spaces were not interruptions but invitations. When she finally returned to the city, her technique had not changed. She still played the same notes in the same order with the same flawless precision. But now, between each note, there was a pause, tiny, almost imperceptible, a breath of silence that let the music sink deeper into the listener's body. And people wept. They closed their eyes. They felt something they could not name, but did not want to end. They said Lynn's music had soul now, but what it really had was space. The music had not changed. What had changed was the emptiness around it. And so it is with sleep. You do not need more sounds tonight. You do not need more thoughts, more plans, more worries playing their endless melody in your mind. You need the pause between the notes, the silence that lets everything settle, the empty space where rest can take root. Let your thoughts be like single notes struck on a string, each one fading naturally, dissolving into quiet, leaving a space that is not empty but full of rest. Breathe slowly. Feel the pause at the top of each breath, that tiny moment of stillness between inhale and exhale. Feel the pause at the bottom, that soft moment between exhale and the next inhale. Those tiny moments of stillness, that is where your sleep lives. In the space between, let the next story come to you like a single note, clear and soft, fading gently into the dark. Deep in the hills of central China, there's a bamboo forest so vast that you can walk for an entire day without reaching its edge. The bamboo grows tall and straight, some stalks reaching 50 feet into the air, their crowns swaying in the wind like green waves on a slow ocean. Sunlight rarely reaches the forest floor. Instead, it filters through the canopy in scattered coins of gold, drifting slowly as the stalks sway back and forth above. A wandering monk once entered this forest seeking shelter for the night. He had been walking for many days, traveling from one monastery to another, carrying nothing but a wooden bowl and a thin blanket. He found a clearing where the bamboo had thinned, and he sat down on a fallen stalk to rest. The ground was covered in a soft carpet of dried leaves and bamboo sheaths, pale gold and whispering under his weight. The wind was blowing gently, and the forest was alive with sound, a low, humming song that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. It was not the sound of birds or insects. It was something deeper, something more resonant, like a choir singing in a cathedral made of green. The monk listened carefully. He closed his eyes and turned his head slowly, trying to find the source. And then he realized the sound was coming from the bamboo itself. As the wind passed through the forest, it entered the hollow centers of broken or cut stalks and played them like flutes. Each stalk produced a slightly different tone, depending on its length and the size of its opening. A short, thick stalk whistled high and bright. A tall, narrow one moaned low and long. Together, they created a natural orchestra, unpracticed, unplanned, and hauntingly beautiful. The monk opened his eyes and looked more carefully at the bamboo around him. He noticed something important. The sound only came from the stalks that were hollow. The solid bamboo, young shoots still filled with soft, white pith, stood silent in the wind. They were strong, green, full of life, their surfaces smooth and unbroken. But they made no music. The wind hit them and passed around them without entering. Only the stalks that had been emptied by age, by insects, by the slow process of drying and hollowing could sing. Only the ones that had space inside them could receive the wind and transform it into music. He sat in that clearing all night, listening. The moon rose above the canopy, silver and full, its light turning the bamboo stalks into columns of pale jade. The wind shifted and changed direction throughout the night, and with each shift, the bamboo forest produced a different melody, now bright and rapid, like laughter, now slow and deep, like a lullaby, now so quiet it was almost silence, the wind barely brushing the openings of the hollow stalks like a mother brushing hair from a sleeping child's forehead. The monk thought about his own life, how full he had kept himself, full of doctrine, full of ambition, full of a need to be someone important, someone learned, someone respected. He had traveled to dozens of temples, memorized hundreds of sutras, collected teachings like a merchant collects coins. He could quote the great masters from memory. He could win any theological debate. His mind was a library with no empty shelves. And yet, for all that fullness, he had produced no music, no joy, no peace. The wind of life had been blowing through him for years, but it had found no hollow space to enter, no opening to sing through. It had simply bounced off his surfaces and moved on. That night in the bamboo forest, he made a decision. He would stop filling himself up. He would stop collecting and memorizing and striving. He would let himself become hollow, not empty in the way of loss, not empty in the way of defeat, but empty in the way of the bamboo. Open, available, ready to be played by whatever wind the world chose to send through him. In the years that followed, the monk became known not for his learning, but for his presence. People said that when you sat with him, you felt strangely at peace. He did not lecture or advise. He did not quote sutras or debate philosophy. He simply listened fully and completely, like a hollow stalk receiving the wind. And in his listening, people heard their own truth more clearly. They heard the answers they already carried, but had been too full of noise to notice. You have been full today, dear friend, full of effort, full of thought, full of the 1,000 small tasks that make up a life. And all of that fullness was necessary and good. But now, in these quiet hours, you can set it down. You can let yourself become hollow. Not empty as in lacking. Hollow as in open. Open to rest. Open to stillness. Open to the gentle wind of sleep that is already moving through the room, looking for a place to play its song. Let your body soften. Feel yourself becoming lighter, as if the weight inside you were slowly draining away, like sand through an hourglass. Let your thoughts thin out, each one quieter than the last. Let your muscles release. Let there be space inside you, space for nothing at all. And in that nothing, feel the wind begin to move, gentle and warm. Breathe and feel the breath enter the hollow of your chest. And breathe out. Feel the space it leaves behind, warm and soft and still. One more slow breath in filling the hollow with air, and out letting the hollow settle, open, quiet. Let the last story come to you now, quiet as moonlight on still water. There was a hermit who lived at the edge of a great lake. He had been there for many years. No one in the nearby village could remember a time when the hermit had not been there. Some said he had come from a wealthy family in the capital and had given up everything. Others said he had been a monk who had left his monastery in search of something the monastery could not give him. No one knew for certain, and the hermit never spoke about his past. His hut was simple, for posts, a thatched roof, a single room with a mat for sleeping, and a fire pit for cooking. The walls were open on all sides, with only thin curtains of woven grass to keep out the rain. In winter, he hung heavier curtains of felt. In summer, he left the walls open entirely, so that the breeze from the lake passed through the hut as if it were not there at all. Travelers sometimes stopped at the hermit's hut, drawn by curiosity or the need for shelter. They always noticed the same thing. The hut was nearly empty. A clay pot for cooking, a wooden cup for drinking, a blanket for sleeping, a broom of bound twigs leaning against one post. That was all. No books, no paintings, no musical instruments, no stored food beyond what the hermit would eat that day. The floor was swept clean, no dust, no clutter, no evidence of any life except the bare minimum. One autumn afternoon, a wealthy merchant stopped at the hermit's hut. He had been traveling for weeks, his caravan loaded with silk and spices and precious stones. He was tired, and the hermit offered him tea, brewed from leaves picked that morning from a bush beside the lake. The merchant looked around the bare room with obvious discomfort. "Where are your things?" he asked. "Where are your possessions?" The hermit smiled. "Where are yours?" he asked. "Mine are at home." "Of course," the merchant said. "I am traveling, so I carry only what I need." "So am I," the hermit said. The merchant frowned. He did not understand. "But you live here," he said. "This is your home. Surely you need more than this. A proper bed, cooking utensils, books, curtains that keep out the cold, a door that locks." The hermit set down his cup and gestured to the open walls of his hut. Through one side, you could see the lake, silver in the afternoon light, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the sky so perfectly that you could not tell where the water ended and the heavens began. Through another opening, the forest, green and deep and alive with birdsong, thrushes and warblers weaving their melodies through the branches. Through a third, the mountains, their peaks touching the low clouds, their slopes covered in pine and cedar that turned the air sharp and sweet. "I have the lake for my mirror," the hermit said quietly, "the forest for my library, the mountains for my temple, the sky for my ceiling, the stars for my chandelier, the wind for my music. What more could I possibly need?" The merchant sat down slowly. He looked through the open walls at the world spreading out in every direction, enormous, beautiful, and completely free. And for the first time in years, he felt something he had forgotten was possible. Enough. Not the enough that comes from having everything, but the enough that comes from needing less. Not fullness, but spaciousness. Not more, but open. He stayed with the hermit for 3 days. He slept on the bear mat and found it softer than he expected. He ate simple rice with wild herbs and found it more flavorful than the feast he hosted at home. He drank water from the lake and found it sweeter than the wine in his cellar. And each day, the feeling of enough grew stronger, not because he was gaining anything, but because he was losing things. Losing urgency, losing the constant itch of wanting, losing the restless noise in his mind that always whispered, "More, more, more." On the morning he left, the merchant bowed to the hermit. "I came here with nothing to give you," he said, "and yet you have given me something I cannot name." The hermit nodded. "I gave you nothing," he said gently, "and nothing was exactly what you needed. This is the gift of empty space. It does not add to your life, it subtracts. It takes away the unnecessary until only the essential remains. And what remains, when everything extra has been removed, is not poverty. It is not lack. It is peace. Tonight, you have nothing you need to add to yourself. No more thoughts to think. No more problems to solve. No more plans to make. The day is complete, and you are complete within it. Every task that needed doing has been done or can wait until tomorrow. Every word that needed saying has been said or can wait until morning. Right now, in this moment, there is nothing missing. Let the room around you become like the hermit's hut, open on all sides, holding nothing but you. Let the darkness be the lake, calm and still and reflecting the stars. Let the quiet be the forest, deep and sheltering and alive with gentle sound. Let the softness of your bed be the mountain, solid and patient beneath you, holding you without effort. You have everything you need. You have your breath. You have this moment. You have the space between your heartbeats, steady and slow and faithful. Breathe in and know that you are held. Breathe out and know that you can rest. The 7 stories have ended now, dear friend. 7 whispers about the beauty of empty space. Lao Tzu showed you that the emptiness inside the wheel, the pot, and the room is what makes them useful. That usefulness lives in what is not there. The calligrapher Sengai showed you that the blank scroll holds every word ever written and every word yet to come. That the source of all creation is silence. Hakuin showed you that the deepest truth is found not by searching, but by stopping, by letting the answers drain away until only awareness remains, vast and quiet and impossibly alive. The Garden of Ryoanji showed you that completeness includes what you cannot see, and that the hidden stone is not a flaw, but a gift, a reminder that you do not need to see everything to be at peace. The musician Lin showed you that music lives in the silence between notes, and that the pause is where feeling takes root, that what you leave out matters as much as what you put in. The bamboo forest showed you that only the hollow can sing, that emptiness is not weakness, but openness, a willingness to be played by the wind of the world. And the hermit by the lake showed you that enough is not about having more, but about needing less. That space itself is a kind of wealth, and that nothing can be exactly what you need. You're that empty space now. You're the hollow bamboo, the open room, the pause between notes, the blank scroll waiting for morning to write its first word. The wind of sleep is moving through you, soft and warm, and you do not need to do anything to receive it. Just stay open, stay hollow, stay still. Your breath is slowing now. Each inhale a little shallower, each exhale a little longer, the space between them growing wider and softer like the sky at dusk, slowly filling with stars. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to think, nothing left to hold. Just space, just quiet, just rest. The moon is overhead, pouring its light through the open walls of your room, turning everything silver and soft. You are safe here. You are held. You are enough. Let the emptiness cradle you now. Let it hold you the way the sky holds the moon, without effort, without grasping, without end. The way the lake holds the reflection of the stars. The way the silence holds the memory of music. Gently, completely, forever. Sleep well, dear friend. Sleep deeply, and know that in the quiet space of your dreams, everything you need is already waiting for you. Not as something to find, but as something you have always been. Good night.